Ramadan Kareem to our Muslim brothers and sisters. We pray that this month bring prosperity and, of course, answered prayers to all your supplications. And as you draw strength from Allah, we pray that you get the desired power to carry through the month. And talking about power, power is a source of energy that makes any economy thrive. Well, looking at it from another direction, and when there is inadequate supply of that, it affects productivity and development. Some experts are of the opinion that relying on alternative sources of energy compel reliability and growth. Renewable energy, no doubt, helps Nigeria not only meet its energy needs, but also power sustainable economic growth and create jobs, while achieving global climate and sustainable development objectives. There is a huge energy gap between urban, semi-urban and rural communities in the country, with an estimated 80 million Nigerians said to be without access to electricity. Now, the availability of sustainable energy infrastructure in off-grid communities presents lots of opportunities for human development and socio-economic impact. The federal government, through the Rural Electrification Agency, is bridging the gap together with its development partners through deliberate interventions to bridge the energy deficit and ensure universal access to electricity through renewable energy sources. This is to ensure that communities that are not connected to the national grid and underserved areas are provided with alternative energy sources. While the federal government is working towards strengthening the national grid to enhance reliable electricity to Nigerians, the REA, on its part, is working to also create this reliability for communities in rural areas. But how much impact is the renewable energy sources, primarily solar energy, is having on communities? And how is it helping to boost economic activities? Tonight, on Weekend File, our focus is on access to electricity through renewable sources. And our guest is Mr. Abba Abubakar Adiyu. He is the Managing Director, CEO, Rural Electrification Agency. We'll bring you situation reports from across the country. Thank you for joining us. This is Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguela. First, let's begin with the news. The spiritual moment that has been ushered in by the holy month of Ramadan provides an opportunity for rebirth of souls for redemption and emancipation from Allah's punishment on transgressors. As the Muslim faithful begin the obligatory 1 month of fast, religious correspondent Abdullahi Ajia tells us about the significance of the month of blessings.
In the consensus and explanations of Islamic scholars, the glorious Quran and Hadith of Prophet Muhammad are sufficient on the obligation of the holy month of Ramadan, which they say entails the deliberate abstinence from sexual desires, eating and drinking from dawn to sunset, with the intention to worship Allah, who has promised a special reward for those who fervently fast in the first, second, and last 10 days of the month. Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar, with a spiritual package and a turning point for mankind, who is expected to maximize the enormous bounties, mercy, and favors of Allah. Nigerian Muslims will be observing this year's Ramadan with high expectations for improved social, economic, and security well-being. In Abuja, Abdullahi Ajia, NTA News.
All right, and to speak more on the Ramadan, we have with us in the studio Dr. Mesuna Yahaya, Department of Islamic Studies, University of Abuja. Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem to you and to all in the global world.
All right, Dr. Yahya, the Ramadan fast has begun, and of course there are expectations of, from the faithful during this holy month. Share with us those expectations.
In a summary, spiritually, economically, socially, and otherwise. We are all expected to improve because it's the month of improvement. Especially when we talk about spiritualism, we're expected to ginger the way we recite Quran. We are expected to speed up the way we give charity to people, especially the less privileged. We are expected to be more consecrated to the activities of Almighty Allah within the month of Ramadan. And of course, if we divide into three, the first 10, the second 10, and the last segment, we have activities that are loaded in each of the segment.
All right, and how would you, how would Muslim faithful leverage on the spiritual benefits, that the month provides, especially in exercise and nation building amongst one another?
In the first place, we go back to the history of the Prophet ﷺ. When he left Mecca for Medina, at Medina there, you had the Jews, you had the Christians, you had the pagans, and you have the Muslims. The Muslims who came from Mecca and the Muslims who were there in Medina before his final arrival. They all got united, and that is the expectation of Nigerians. Therefore, Nigerian Muslims at this juncture were expected to use the spirit of Ramadan to unite and unite with others. If you look at it globally, Ramadan is on the same page with everyone. So why not use this opportunity, the very ample opportunity we have, in order to unite among ourselves and even among others, our neighbors, at workplace, and all over. So unity is part of what Ramadan has brought. And of course, we must work assiduously to make sure that we achieve that here, now, and forever.
Indeed, Dr. Yahya, and just in a few days, talking about Wednesday, some Christians will begin the Lent. So you see the coincidence, we have to unite. Exactly. Thank you so much, Dr. Maisuna Yahya, from the Department of Islamic Studies, University of Abuja.
Thank you.
And still on the Ramadan, Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, admonishes Islamic faithful to keep the nation in prayers for peace and prosperity as they embark on the holy month of fasting and prayers. In her message felicitating Muslims on the commencement of the blessed month of Ramadan, the First Lady prays that the month brings them peace, joy and spiritual fulfillment, while urging them to extend love and kindness to their neighbors, especially those in need during this season. She prays that Almighty Allah accepts all their supplications and answers all their prayers. Similarly, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, urges Nigerian Muslims to pray for the country and its leaders as the Ramadan fasting commences. He says Nigeria's unity is paramount, which is why adherents of all religions must continue to offer sincere prayers for the country and for President Bola Tinubu, urging Nigerians to continue to believe in the renewed hope agenda of this administration. Similarly, Director General, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, Professor Abubakar Suleiman, is also congratulating the Muslim Ummah for witnessing the 2025 Ramadan fast, urging them to use the period to pray for the country and for wealthy individuals to support the less privileged at these challenging times. Gombe State Government has flagged up distribution of over 30,000 bags of rice and other food items as palliatives for the Ramadan to bring succor, especially to the less privileged. Emmanuel Akila will tell us more.
The month of Ramadan is here again, the season when Muslims engage in high level of spiritual activities, including the 30 or 29 days Ramadan fast, recitation of the glorious Quran, prayers in worship places, and preachings. The palliative, the government says, is not only for the Muslims engaged in the Ramadan fast, but for all who deserve them.
If you look at the distribution chart, it's fairly distributed across the 11 local government, depending on the population, and then all poor and vulnerable are expected to benefit from this exercise.
Not only the members of the NI, but the general public. So these items are going to be given to those we think the items will benefit them more.
to the beneficiaries, which include mostly the indigent in the society, the palliative is coming in handy.
This palliative is coming at the right time, going to help people with disabilities in Gombe State.
The government had set up a committee to ensure equitable distribution of the palliatives across the 11 local government areas of the state. In Gombe, Emmanuel Akila, NTA News.
And we turn to other issues. The federal government has flagged off the 80 billion naira reconstruction and upgrade of Alau Dam project in Borno State with a commitment to ensuring timely completion. Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Professor Joseph Utsev, performed the inauguration at a ceremony attended by Borno State Governor Babagana Umar Zulum and Minister of Agriculture and Food Security Abubakar Kyari. Let's hear from Mohammed Goni.
Alau Dam, which was constructed in 1986 to provide water for domestic and industrial needs as well as agricultural purposes, collapsed in September 2024, resulting to loss of lives and property. The federal government set up a technical assessment team to assess the integrity of all dams across the country, which recommended the immediate reconstruction of Alau Dam, hence the approval of the 80 billion naira.
With the reconstruction of this dam, our aim is not only for the supply of domestic water, flood control, they also encompass the irrigation component.
This project signifies not just the repair of the physical structure, but the revitalization of hope and prosperity for our people. The Alau Dam has suffered from lack of regular maintenance for time, aggravated by the security challenges we have faced.
Suggest to my brother to also think of irrigation for agriculture, because I think there's another expanse of land across the road that something can be done through engineering.
Chairman Senate Committee on Water Resources and Sanitation and his counterpart at the House of Representatives assured the state authorities of sustained legislative oversight to ensure that the project is executed to specifications. In Maiduguri, Mohammed Goni, NTA News.
The federal government has approved the appointment of Professor Lucien Chukwu as the substantive Vice-Chancellor of Admiralty University in Delta State. The new VC emerged through the selection exercise conducted on 26th and 27th February 2025, and the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, has approved Professor Lucien Chukwu's appointment for a single term of 5 years with effect from February 28, 2025. The Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Ali Pate, says President Bola Tinubu is investing heavily in the revitalization of Nigeria's primary health care system in a collaborative way that suits the development agenda of the state and local government areas of the country. Speaking during the commissioning of a state-of-the-art facility alongside Akwa Ibom State Governor Pastor Umo Eno in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, Professor Pate emphasized that a healthy population is key to national productivity, peace, and economic growth.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is very keen to transform Nigeria's health sector. And he sees that that transformation will take place only if federal government, states, local governments all work hand in hand and focusing on primary health care as the basis. We signed a compact and you signed that compact and the President witnessed it. And we're investing to revamp our primary health care system across the country.
We have provided insurance too for our people. We're discussing coming here with the Honourable Minister how this all brings strength to the ecotourism in the health sector, that will provide hospitals, we provide health insurance.
The coordinating minister also highlighted several initiatives aimed at transforming healthcare in Nigeria, including the $1 billion concessional financing under Project Hope, designed to incentivize improvements in PHC across, that is, primary healthcare across the country. President Bola Tinubu celebrates Justice Solomon Olushola Puno, a former judge of the judiciary, on his 80th birthday. President rewards the eminent jurist for his dedication to upholding the rule of law, leadership, judiciary, and contributions to Nigeria's jurisprudence. The President trusts that the elder statesman will remain a source of wisdom and guide the legal profession and the nation, drawing on his vast experience and expertise. President Bola Tinubu has paid glowing tribute to the late founding president of the Republic of Nigeria, Dr. Sam Nujoma. Let's hear him. His demise is not an exit from space and time, but the work of his immortality of Africans. The company of several African heads of government joined President Mumba of Namibia at the state burial, where he paid Nigeria's last respect on behalf of President Tinubu to the late Nujoma. The president, he said, praised Nujoma's leadership beyond independence, noting that he built Namibia from the ashes of occupation and ruled selflessly for his people. He reassured the people of Namibia of Nigeria's solidarity, asserting that the struggle that united both countries had become the foundation of an unbreakable friendship. Call it the celebration of life, well lived. It will not be wrong. It's because late Akune Joseph Njeribe was blessed with longevity, a period of life spent making a positive impact on humanity. This informs the gathering of friends and wishes who came to bid her farewell as she was laid to rest in Iho, Ikeduru local government area of Imo State.
Family members, friends, and associates gathered in their numbers at Umore Iho in Ikeduru local government area of Imo State to pay their last respect to late Akunne Josephine Njeribe, a woman they described as a caring mother, whose commitment to the service of God and humanity was exceptional. In his message at the funeral mass held at St. Mary's Catholic Church, the parish priest, Reverend Father Chukwu Jude, admonished Christians to always live lives worthy of emulation, just like the late Njeribe, who gave her best to the service of God. What will you be remembered for? The body of the late Akunne Njeribe was later committed to the Mother Earth after the graveside rites. Children and grandchildren of the deceased, among whom is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Gekev Prospect Limited, Gerard Onoha, speak on her life and times.
No one problem. A woman that wants the progress of her children, a woman that makes sure that the children we are happy. A life that every human being should emulate.
Late Akunne Josephine Njeribe, who died at the age of 93, was an entrepreneur during her active years. She will be greatly missed by her children, grandchildren, and a host of other relations.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll be discussing access to electricity through renewable energy. Please stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned. Now let's talk renewable energy. Talking about access to electricity, there is a huge energy gap between urban, semi-urban and rural communities in Nigeria, with an estimated 80 million Nigerians said to be without access to electricity. But the federal government says there are deliberate interventions to bridge the energy deficit and ensure universal access to electricity through renewable energy sources. Joshua Ojito reports.
From distribution access through renewable energy scale-up, DES, which has a seed capital of $750 million, to interconnected mini-grid acceleration scheme, IMAS, which has the support of European Union and the German government to the tune of more than 4 billion naira. To EHAT, among other interventions under the Nigeria Energy Support Program. These are all interventions from the Rural Electrification Agency to close the energy gap in rural communities, as well as ensure universal access to electricity to more than 20,000 unserved and underserved communities in Nigeria. The interventions are making impacts, changing lives and boosting rural economy.
It's helped me a lot because without the solar, my fridge will not work. But these lights, they are always, every time there will be lights, unless you do not have credit.
Light is life. Since solar came here, our business and everything is moving on.
With subnationals keying into the partnership, more communities are being lighted up across the country as federal government targets deployment of solar mini-grids to more than 1,000 communities in the first phase.
It will allow this young one within the society to learn trade, artisanship, and others.
We have been here for long without having electricity. As this project came now, we are very happy about it.
We are very, very happy. All the businesses will now continue.
It is expected that if the current momentum is sustained, Nigeria will achieve universal access to electricity. Joshua Ojito, NTA News.
All right, let's bring in our guests. We have in the studio the Managing Director and CEO, Rural Electrification Agency, Mr. Abba Abubakar Aliyu. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Aliyu.
Thank you very much for having me.
I like what the respondents from that report said, light is life. So that's one thing you can take away from people. And if I want to know, or rather Nigerians would like to know how, it's been for the REA in dealing, with the demand and meeting supply.
Thank you very much. The tasks for REA to bridge the electricity access gap is quite a huge task. From the previous clip, you could have seen the numbers that have been mentioned, number of people that are without the electricity access gap in the country. And as a context, this is as much as the population of some countries, population of Turkey. And the reason why we have that huge number of people without the access, it's simple. One, it's the lack of investment by the previous government in terms of investing in the infrastructure. One, to extend the grid to the different areas, and two, to replace the aging infrastructure. And secondly, also the rate at which we electrify the country vis-a-vis the rate of population growth is not going hand in hand. So these are one of the reasons why Nigeria has the highest number of people without electricity. And but the present government wants to turn this challenge into an opportunity. We want to use the opportunity of having the highest number of people without electricity and turn it into making Nigeria the hub of renewable energy in the entire sub-Saharan Africa. And that is why the Rural Electrification Agency is given the mandate, one, to create this access to the communities that are without this access. And not only that, but to also create reliability for the communities that are provided with this electricity. Maybe they get less number of hours with this electricity. So we want to create reliability for these communities. And that is the main task given to Rural Electrification Agency.
And I understand you have a 2-year target plan meeting 1.5 million Nigerians. You just recently reeled that out. The target is for 125 interconnected mini solar grids, you know. I would like to know, 40 has been deployed already, but getting to these numbers, that's a lot. How are you going to achieve that?
Our target is far more than 1.5 million. The Rural Electrification Agency is operating different components, different programs, and each programs for us to ensure transparency and accountability. We put a target number of people that we intend to electrify. So I give you in context. One, we have the distributed access through renewable energy scale-up. The target there is to electrify 17.5 million Nigerians. And this is one of the most ambitious renewable energy projects in the entire African continent.
What's the time frame?
The time frame is 3 years.
Okay.
So in 3 years, we intend to electrify the 17.5 million. And we already started this implementation. We have started with 40 interconnected mini grids, working with 7 distribution companies, and that interconnected mini grids process had already started. We are deploying mini grids in different parts of the country. In fact, in the next 2 weeks, we intend to set a record of commissioning the largest number or the biggest number of mini grids in Africa. We are going to commission about 25 mini grids in one particular day. So the distributed access through renewable energy scale-up has a target of 17.5 million. So that is just one part of it. The second part of it is just if last 2 weeks, the Honorable Minister of Power was in Japan to further the discussion for additional co-financing by the Japanese International Development Agency to the DES project to the total sum of $200 million, which is also designed to electrify additional 1,830,000 Nigerians. So if you add that number to the 17.5 million, we are talking close to 20 million. And that is just also the second. There is additional project that Mr. President has spoken about when he was in Tanzania during the compact presentation, the Nigerian compact presentation, where the discussion with the African Development Bank has commenced for additional funding of about $700 million. And the target for that is to electrify additional 10 million Nigerians. So we're talking about close to 30 million Nigerians to be electrified in the next few years.
You know, it's good you're reeling out the numbers, Mr. Aliyu, because I was going to ask about the funding, but it's good you're letting us into that. Let's take a break. We'll be back with the conversation. Thank you for staying with us. Mr. Aliyu, before we continue the conversation, I'd like you to see what's happening in Kano. We hear rural communities in the state are experiencing power boost as the Rural Electrification Agency rolls out new transformers and solar grids to address years of unstable electricity. Elizabeth Yila Lamido reports.
For years, residents of Sako and Bauchia communities in Wudil local government area of Kano State have endured an erratic electricity supply, forcing many local businesses to shut down. However, as part of its mandate to improve electricity access, the Rural Electrification Agency installed 500 kVA transformers and new electricity poles, bringing much-needed relief to the affected communities.
We don't have water because most of the people the water even depends on the electricity we are generating.
Since mounting this new transformer here, we no longer have problem of electricity supply for the first 8 months now.
Across Kano, the agency continues to implement critical electrification projects. One significant success is the 7.1 megawatt solar hybrid power plant at Bayero University, Kano. Similarly, in Sara community, Zawachiki, Kumboso local government area, a 1 megawatt mini solar grid powered by nearly 3,000 solar panels now supplies electricity to over 2,000 homes and 38 commercial outlets, including the Dala Inland Dry Port and surrounding businesses. Rural areas are gradually shading their traditional status. This form of transformation is redefining the socio-economic landscape of Kano State. From Kano, Elizabeth Yila Lamido, NTA News.
All right, Mr. Aliyu, we've seen what the agency is doing in Kano, and I'm sure that cuts across all the parts of the country. But in as much as we commend your efforts, there are still a lot of gaps to be filled. Is the agency exploring all the alternative sources of energy? Because just recently, the Minister of Power stated that the construction of the Lagos to Calabar highway and the Badagry to Sokoto highway, propels an opportunity for investment in wind energy. Is the agency looking at that direction?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
What you have seen in Kano is just a tip of an iceberg of what the Rural Electrification Agency is doing, not only in Kano State, but in the entire country. One, like I mentioned earlier, if you look at the source of funding that the present government of President Bola Tinubu had made it possible to Rural Electrification Agency, we are planning to start unprecedented level of mini-grid deployment across the country. The transformer you have seen we install in Wudil is just one of the of it. In this particular budget of this year, we intend to deploy thousands of such transformers and extend the grid to different areas. But for the areas where it's economically more viable to deploy the renewable energy sources, either isolated mini-grid or interconnected mini-grid, we have already mapped the entire country. And the essence of the mapping of the country is to determine what is the least and the most economically viable means of providing this community with electricity. Should we extend the grid by providing the transformer and distribution line to the communities to power them, or should we deploy an interconnected mini-grid, or should it be an isolated mini-grid? So we have that data. Kano State, Lagos State, Bayelsa, Enugu, we have for the entire country. And that data is what we are using to decide on the best means of providing the access of electricity. Now, talking about the other access beyond the solar, yes, it is one of the mandates that the Minister of Power gave REA to explore other sources of renewable energy. And based on that, we already had started one in a community called Balanga in Gombe State, where we are looking at combining micro hydro power plant and solar power plant to energize communities and an agricultural hub within the community called Balanga in Gombe State. And we are also exploring the economically viable technology for the wind solar, because the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway has given us an opportunity to deploy wind energy across those coastal areas, about 9 of them that the Minister of Power had mentioned. So we are looking at that opportunity to deploy that. The main critical success factors for us is to have a technology that will allow us to deploy it and charge economically viable tariff, which is affordable and sustainable for the communities. So we are looking at that option. Even beyond the wind technology and the micro hydro, we are also looking at the biomass. We are testing one technology in Adamawa State where we are combining solar and biomass. So the solar will operate during the day, then during the night we use the bio waste to generate the electricity to power the community. So we are doing a lot in determining the most economically viable technology to continue to deploy this intervention across the country.
And Mr. Aliyu, you agree with me that if you must sustain reliability, you need sustainability plan. What are some of the, hiccups you might have encountered in some of these communities that you feel needs to be tackled as soon as possible?
We are very strong, we are very real when it comes to sustainability, because one of the disadvantages of renewable energy is that the equipment you use will get to expire or will get to go to reach to the end of the lifespan after a particular period of time. So sustainability means planning from the beginning, plan with the end in mind, planning that by the end of the lifespan of this equipment, what are you going to do to continue to sustain that intervention? So we are very big with sustainability. And one of the key strategies we adopt for sustainability is building our entire intervention around the private sector. So we are trying to roll out from the traditional concept of giving contracts to put infrastructure, but we are going towards more around partnering with the private sector, whereby the private sector will catalyze investment and funding in the form of debt or equity, and also getting capital grant from REA to deploy the infrastructure. The wisdom behind that is that the private sector will have a skin in the game. If they get a debt financing to deploy the infrastructure, it means that they will make sure that that infrastructure is working over a very long period of time for them to recoup their investment, for them to pay off their debt and also make profit. So that is one of the key strategies we adopt. The second strategy for the big intervention project that you see on the screen, these are the 12 megawatt, 10 megawatt, 5 megawatt project that we intervene in the educational sector. For this, we have a much bigger sustainability plan. We are seeking approval now of the Honorable Minister of Power to create what we call the Renewable Energy Asset Management Company. And the essence of that is to create a company that will warehouse this asset, and in the balance sheet of this asset, all this big intervention will now be in the balance sheet of the asset, and which means that the company would even have the leverage to borrow more funding to be able to continue to deploy the infrastructure, and at the same time will also be able to manage the infrastructure using the private sector for a very long period of time. So that is something that we are looking at.
Well, I can see you have your strategy all, planned out for you, and wish you the very best. We want to appreciate you for lighting up those rural communities, and thank you for coming on Weekend File.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be back. Stay tuned. Thank you for being there. Garnet Resort City Estate, a deliberate housing project of GTEX Holdings Nigeria, is on offer for smart land investors. Correspondent Ayodeji Makinde was at the launching and allocation of this 25 hectares of land in Abuja.